Okay, let's unpack this. We are diving deep into one of the most persistent and, frankly, just fascinating topics out there today. Did dinosaurs really die out 66 million years ago? Spoiler alert, nope.
Not quite. That's exactly right. Our mission today really is to sift through a whole stack of compelling evidence. We're talking cutting-edge genetics, these stunning new fossil finds coming out of places like China, even Antarctica.
Wow.
Yeah, and use it all to chart this incredible, like 150 million year journey. It's the story of how certain lines of, well, giant scary reptiles essentially mastered getting smaller.
Like digitization, right?
Exactly. Developed flight, survived this absolutely global catastrophe, and basically became the, huge, colorful group we just call birds.
And the key thing, the bit you really need to get your head around right at the start is this. Birds, scientifically aves, they aren't just descended from dinosaurs. They're dinosaurs.
The only ones left?
The only ones. They fit right inside the theropod group, specifically these specialized, small, often feathered carnivores called maniraptorans.
Maniraptorans, yeah. That classification is so crucial. It literally means hand snatchers. Think velociraptor, that kind of group.
Right.
And the defining thing, anatomically, is this wrist bone. It's called the semilunate carpal. Basically, it's crescent-shaped, lets the hand fold sideways really neatly.
Like a bird folds its wing.
Precisely. That bone is like a physical signature, It connects the wren in your backyard straight back to those Jurassic raptors. It's unmistakable.
So this deep dive, it's designed to be a shortcut for you, the listener. We want to help you connect those things you see every day, like how a chicken walks, or just the structure of a single feather.
Yeah.
Connect that all the way back to deep, deep geological time. You'll finish this understanding exactly how this one specific lineage, over 10,000 species now, how they navigated the biggest extinction event we know of, and became, well, arguably the most successful vertebrates on Earth.
It's an amazing story.
Okay, let's tackle that core misconception head on. We tend to think dinosaur here, bird over there, like separate boxes. When did scientists really start realizing, wait a minute, these are basically the same thing? And when did this transition actually kick off?
Well, the scientific realization, that's taken, over a century of debate and discovery. But the actual biological transition, that started way earlier. We're talking mid to late Jurassic period. So maybe 165, 150 million years ago.
Okay.
That's when you get these small, fast-running theropod dinosaurs starting to, let's say, experiment. Developing things like incredibly lightweight hollow bones and feathers, or at least proto-feathers.
And this is where the language gets tricky, isn't it? If I say birds evolved from dinosaurs, it sounds like one group finished and then another started. But you're saying that's just wrong.
It is fundamentally wrong, yeah. From a classification perspective, anyway. If we're using cladistics, which is all about grouping based on shared ancestry.
Right, the family tree approach.
Exactly. Birds fit perfectly inside the Dinosauria group. Saying birds evolved from dinosaurs is like saying, humans evolved from mammals. No, we are mammals.
Ah, okay, good analogy.
Birds are dinosaurs. They're just the one very successful avian branch of theropods that managed to sneak past that KPG extinction event.
So beyond feathers, which are pretty obvious, what's the sort of smoking gun anatomically? What do paleontologists point to and say, see, dinosaur?
Oh, there are several key things. But maybe the most compelling is stuff related to their, let's call it, high-performance physiology. Take the hollow bones, the pneumatic bones.
Lighter for flight, right.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
But it's more than just weight reduction. It's tied to their incredibly sophisticated respiratory system. These bones actually connect to air sacs throughout the body.
Oh, yeah.
This lets birds have this amazing one-way airflow through their lungs, super efficient. And here's the kicker. We now have solid evidence that big non-avian theropods, even T-Rex, they also had these complex air sacs and pneumatic bones. They basically inherited this super efficient breathing system from their dinosaur ancestors. Flight just found a brilliant new use for it later on.
So that ability, that lets an eagle soar at high altitude without gasping for air. That actually started in huge dinosaurs walking on the ground. That's mind-blowing.
It really is. And then you look at the mechanics. We mentioned the wrist bone already, but think about the which bone, the furcula.
The Thanksgiving tradition?
Yeah, that one. In birds, it acts like a spring, right? Stores energy on the downstroke, releases it on the upstroke, essential for powered flight.
Okay.
Well, guess what? That structure, the fused clavicles, it's present in all advanced theropods. Dromaeosaurs, like Velociraptor, had them.
What do they use it for?
Probably slightly different function, maybe stabilizing the shoulder when they were grappling with prey, but the structure itself, it's undeniably inherited. Combine that with the three-toed foot, that classic theropod footprint shape.
Yeah.
The link is literally written in bone.
Okay, let's get to the fossils themselves, the ones that really sealed the deal. We have to start in Germany, right? With the big one.
Archaeopteryx lithographica, absolutely. The classic transitional fossil. Found in the Solnhofen limestone in Germany, it dates back about 150 million years, late Jurassic, and it perfectly shows just how messy and experimental evolution can be early on.
A real chimera, you said.
Yeah.
Like bits of different animals stuck together.
Precisely. If you just looked at its skull, it had sharp teeth, like any small theropod. Its tail, long, bony, totally dinosaurian.
Okay.
But then you look at its wings, beautifully preserved feathers, and not just any feathers, asymmetrical flight feathers, the kind you need for aerodynamic lift.
Wow.
But it also had 3 clawed fingers sticking out of the wing. Modern birds don't have that. It could definitely fly, or at least glide and flap a bit, but it didn't have that big keel bone on its chest, the sternum, that anchors powerful flight muscles.
So not a strong flyer, more like a clumsy flap.
Something like that, an early experiment, trying things out in the sky.
Now, for ages, Archaeopteryx was kind of the lone example, wasn't it? Made the link seem maybe a bit tenuous. But then came China.
Oh, yeah. The discoveries from Liaoning province in China, starting in the 1990s, they just changed everything. These fossils are incredibly preserved, early Cretaceous age, and they showed feathers weren't some weird Archaeopteryx thing. They were all over the place in non-avian dinosaurs.
Okay, give us an example. A feathered dinosaur that definitely wasn't a bird.
Well, take Sinosauropteryx, one of the first ones found. Small coelurosaur, covered in these simple hair-like filaments, what we affectionately call dino fuzz.
Dino fuzz, I like that.
Yeah, it proved feathers came before flight, probably for insulation, maybe display. Then you get the absolutely spectacular Microraptor.
The four-winged one.
That's the one. Feathers on his arms and his legs, basically turned its hind limbs into another set of wings. This thing was likely a glider, probably an evolutionary dead end, but it just shows the incredible experimentation with feathers happening 120 million years ago. It just completely demolishes that neat line between dinosaur and bird.
That leads us right into feathers. To the iconic bird trait. But, like we just said, assuming they evolved for flight is wrong. So if they started as this dino fuzz for warmth, how did evolution turn a simple filament into these complex, interlocking things that let a hummingbird just hang in the air?
Yeah, the evolution of the feather is such a beautiful example of, stepwise refinement. It's driven by small tweaks in the genetic instruction manual. Paleontologists, looking at fossils and also using clues from molecular studies, they see at least 4 major stages. Stage 1, simple hollow filaments, that's your dino fuzz, like on Sinosauropteryx, purely for keeping warm, most likely.
Okay, so like a reptile trying out fur, almost.
Kind of, yeah. Then stage 2, you get tufts of these filaments, still unbranched but grouped together at the base, makes this sort of downy structure.
And fluffier.
Exactly. Stage 3 is where you get branching, barbs coming off a central shaft like a symmetrical feather. Still maybe not great for flight, it's only stage 4 where you get the clever bit. The barbs develop these tiny little hooks, barbicels.
Ah, the Velcro system.
Pretty much. They interlock, creating a smooth, continuous, rigid vein. And crucially, this vein becomes asymmetrical. That asymmetry is what generates lift when air flows over it.
And the amazing thing is the genetics behind it. This huge shift from scales to feathers wasn't some massive, sudden genetic overhaul.
No, not at all. The research suggests it was more about tweaking the controls. Changes in regulatory genes, the ones that tell other genes when and where to turn on during development, specifically for skin structures. Evolution basically repurposed the existing genetic toolkit for making scales, just fiddled with the settings.
Wow. Using old parts for new tricks.
That's evolution in a nutshell. Taking an insulation system and co-opting it for flight? Brilliant.
Okay, let's switch gears to reproduction. Feathers might be the flashy innovation, but the egg. That's the deep, ancient history connecting birds right back to their reptile roots.
Oh, absolutely. The science is crystal clear on this. The common ancestor of every single bird laid eggs. Oviparity. It's the bedrock of the whole lineage, going back hundreds of millions of years before the first feather ever appeared.
And that all traces back to the amniotic egg, right? Remind us why that was such a massive deal for life on Earth.
The amniotic egg. That was the key to truly conquering land. Back in the Carboniferous period, maybe 312 to 330 million years ago, before that, amphibians, even early reptiles, had to lay these soft, jelly-like eggs in water or they'd dry out.
Tied to the pond.
Totally. The amniotic egg changed everything. It evolved these internal membranes, amnion, chorion, allantois, to protect the embryo, handle waste, gas exchange, and crucially, a protective shell, hard or leathery, to stop water loss. That freed animals from needing water to reproduce. It opened up the entire landmass for vertebrates. A huge evolutionary leap.
So the egg your chicken lays today is basically carrying technology from the Carboniferous. Incredible. But what specifically links modern bird eggs back to their dinosaur ancestors?
Well, beyond the hard shell itself, there are some really cool links. Fossil nests show us that many dinosaurs, especially things like oviraptors, laid eggs in nests and even sat on them, brooding, just like birds do today.
Protecting them, keeping them warm.
Exactly. And get this. Recent studies analyzing fossil pigments, they found evidence that some dinosaur eggs were colored. Blues and greens.
No way. Why?
Maybe camouflage? Or possibly antimicrobial properties. It's a trait we see in many modern bird eggs today. It seems they inherited it directly.
That's amazing. And there's that one really specific physiological link, isn't there? Something about female birds and bone.
Ah, yes, medullary bone. This is one of the absolute strongest anatomical links. It's fascinating. When a female bird is getting ready to lay eggs, her body does something remarkable. It temporarily deposits this special type of bone tissue, very spongy, lots of blood vessels inside the marrow cavities of her long bones, like her legs.
Why does she do that?
It's a calcium piggy bank. Making eggshells requires a huge amount of calcium really quickly. This medullary bone is a temporary reserve she can draw on to build those shells. It's not for strength, it's purely for reproduction.
Okay, and why is finding that in a fossil such a big deal?
Because it only forms when the animal is female and reproductively active. It's triggered by hormones, specifically estrogen. And paleontologists found this exact, unmistakable tissue inside the femur of a pregnant Tyrannosaurus rex.
A T-Rex.
Yep. And in other non-avian theropods, too. It proves that this complex, hormone-driven, calcium-guzzling reproductive strategy that modern birds use, it was already fully operational way back in the dinosaur line. It's like a skeletal signature confirming that shared heritage.
Okay, so we've got the pieces, feathers evolving, hollow bones, the ancient egg legacy, that medullary bone link. Let's put it on a timeline. We start back in the Jurassic, the proto-bird era. This is where things are still kind of messy, experimental.
Yeah, the Jurassic, roughly 201 down to 145 million years ago. This is the time of the Paravians. That's a really key group, includes dromaeosaurs, the raptors, and also the very earliest birds, the avilae. This is when you see those first primitive feathers popping up, lightweight bones becoming more common. And creatures like Archaeopteryx appear. They show that flight is definitely being worked on, but it's still, let's say, clunky. They haven't nailed the mechanics for really powerful, efficient flight yet.
Things speed up a lot in the next period, the Cretaceous, right? 145 to 66 million years ago, the sky gets crowded.
Oh yeah, the Cretaceous skies were buzzing. You see this big split, a major diversification into two main groups of advanced bird-like dinosaurs. The first group that really took off were the Enantiorniths. Literally means opposite birds.
Opposite birds. Why opposite? What was different about them?
It's about their shoulder structure, actually. How the scapula, the shoulder blade, and the coracoid bone connected. It was sort of reversed compared to modern birds.
Okay. And what did that mean for them?
It probably limited their wing stroke a bit, prevented the full range of motion needed for the really powerful, efficient flight we see today. But don't get me wrong, they were incredibly successful, super diverse, filled all sorts of niches, perching birds, wading birds. Many still had teeth. They were the dominant birds for maybe 80 million years.
Wow, 80 million years. But they're all gone now.
Completely. That different shoulder structure, maybe other subtle things, it seems it was their Achilles heel. When the asteroid hit at the KPG boundary, total extinction for the Enantiornithes. Every single one wiped out.
That's incredible. A slight anatomical difference seals your fate when the world goes haywire. So what about the other group, the ones that made it?
That was the Ornithoromorpha. This is the group that includes the ancestors of all modern birds. Their key advantage, they had a more flexible, robust shoulder joint, basically the same setup modern birds have, and a stronger sternum, that keelbone, for anchoring bigger flight muscles. They were generally heading towards toothless beaks and much better flight capabilities.
And we see hints they were maybe smarter, too.
Yeah.
More adaptable.
Absolutely. Fossils like Nivornis hestii from about 80 million years ago, the skull showed that ornithoromorphs were already developing brain structures much more similar to modern birds. Bigger areas for coordination, maybe memory, problem solving.
So better flyers and maybe better thinkers. A good combo for survival.
Exactly. That cognitive edge, evolving alongside better flight, probably positioned them perfectly to cope when things got really chaotic later on.
Okay, let's jump ahead. We need to talk about the ancestor, the most recent common ancestor, the MRCA. Of all those 10,000 plus birds alive today, the Neornithes, when did that creature live and what was it like?
Right, the MRCA of all living birds. The best estimates put it pretty late in the Cretaceous, maybe somewhere between 95 and 75 million years ago. We think it was probably a small, feathered, flying theropod, something that might have looked a bit like a creature called Ichthyornis.
Ichthyornis, why is that one important?
Well, Ichthyornis was around in the Cretaceous, about the size of a gull. It was a capable flyer, had really modern-looking wings, strong sternum, good flight mechanics. But crucially, it still had jaws full of sharp teeth.
Ah, so still a mix, but leaning more towards modern bird flight.
Exactly. It shows that the key flight adaptations were really coming together very late in the age of dinosaurs. So the ancestor of all modern birds was likely small, adaptable, a decent flyer, living, probably in the shadow of the big guys like T-Rex.
And what about its looks? Any clues from genetics or fossils?
Yeah, there's a fun little detail emerging from recent studies. It suggests that this ancestor, maybe right before the extinction, might have already evolved iridescent feathers.
Shiny feathers, like on a starling or a magpie.
Exactly, that glossy, shimmery quality. It's used so much in modern bird displays, right, for courtship. The fact that it might have already been present in the genome before the extinction suggests some pretty complex social behaviors were already happening back then.
Okay, this brings us to the moment everything changed. 66 million years ago, the KPG extinction event. Asteroid hits the Yucatan, maybe 10 kilometers wide. Massive earthquakes, tsunamis, volcanoes popping off, and this global cloud of soot and dust blocking out the sun.
It was an absolute planetary nightmare, a true great filter. That impact, plus the massive volcanic eruptions happening in India around the same time, it triggered the sudden catastrophic collapse of ecosystems worldwide, the dust and soot cloud. That caused what's basically a nuclear winter. Photosynthesis just stops.
Plants die.
Plants die, the entire food chain just snaps from the bottom up. The big, non-avian dinosaurs reliant on huge amounts of vegetation or large prey, they starved, massive habitat loss. They just couldn't cope. 75% of all species on Earth vanish.
So the critical question, why did the Neornithes, this one specific group of bird-like dinosaurs, make it through when the super successful enantiornites and all the big land dinosaurs got wiped out?
It looks like it came down to a combination of factors, maybe 3 key adaptations they had really honed just in time. First one, small size.
Being small helped.
Hugely. The evidence suggests the average size of the Neornithes birds that survived was significantly smaller than their extinct cousins, like the Enantiornithes. Being small means you need way less food. Simple as that. Allows you to survive on scraps.
Okay.
And crucially, being small means you can hide, find shelter, burrow underground maybe, or hide in deep crevices, rock piles, somewhere to ride out the initial firestorms and then the long, dark, cold period afterward.
Right, makes sense. What was the second factor? You mentioned beaks earlier.
Yes, their feeding gear and diet, specifically the toothless beak and omnivory. When the sun went out and plants died, large herbivores starved. The carnivores that ate them starved. But many of the surviving Neornithes, they were either generalist omnivores eating whatever they could find, or specialized seed eaters.
Seeds. How did that help?
Think about it. Seeds, especially those with hard shells, are like little survival packages. They can stay dormant, buried in the soil for a long time, even through disaster.
Like a hidden pantry.
Exactly. While everything on the surface was dead or dying, these birds could potentially dig up this stored energy source. And their toothless, hardened beaks were perfect tools for cracking open those seeds or nuts. It allowed them to basically wait out the darkness that starved the bigger, more specialized animals. That dietary flexibility was probably absolutely critical.
Okay, small size, flexible diet with beaks.
Hmm.
What's the third advantage?
The one thing the giants definitely didn't have: mobility. Flight.
Right. How did flight help during an apocalypse?
Well, imagine the chaos. Global wildfires, shock waves, maybe acid rain. Flight offered an escape route. Survivors could cover huge distances quickly, get away from the worst immediate impacts, find isolated pockets, maybe small islands or coastal areas where things weren't quite so bad, where maybe some marine life survived that they could scavenge.
So they could actively seek out refuge zones.
Precisely. They could survey vast areas, find and exploit any little remaining pockets of resources in a way that a ground-bound animal just couldn't. Small size, beaks for seeds, and wings to find shelter that seems to be the winning combination.
And once the dust literally started to settle and the planet began recovering, the Neornithids found themselves in a very empty world.
An empty world full of opportunity. The post-extinction bloom in the Paleogene period, that's the time just after the extinction, it was explosive. All their competitors were gone. The big dinosaurs, the other bird groups like the Enantiorniths, massive ecological roles were just sitting empty.
Waiting to be filled.
Yep. And the surviving Neornithis lineages, the ones that led to modern ducks, geese, game birds, eventually songbirds, they radiated out incredibly fast, diversified spectacularly to fill all those empty niches.
And didn't some birds even try to become giant dinosaurs again for a while?
Hey, yeah, nature abhors a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
For a time, especially in the early Paleogene, giant flightless birds stepped into the roles left vacant by the big non-avian dinosaurs. You had huge herbivores and some truly terrifying predators.
The terror birds.
The forest racids in South America, exactly. Massive, fast-running predators with huge hooked beaks. And in North America and Europe, you had Gastornis. Huge bird, maybe over 2 meters tall. Probably an herbivore, but for a while it was one of the largest land animals around. Shows just how quickly birds were ready to try and reclaim those dinosaur-sized lifestyles.
Now, this whole story, it's not just ancient history locked away in museums. The science is constantly evolving. New fossils, new tech like genomics. They're rewriting parts of the story practically every year. Let's talk about some of the really recent cutting-edge stuff.
Absolutely. It's a super dynamic field. For instance, that timeline we talked about, it keeps getting tweaked. There was a recent fossil find in China, Baminornis zengensis, dates back to 149 million years ago.
Wow, that's really early, back near Archaeopteryx.
Exactly. And it already shows some pretty sophisticated adaptations for flight, suggesting that the lineage leading towards modern birds, the Neornithes, might have started separating and specializing much earlier than we thought. Maybe right alongside Archaeopteryx. Things are constantly being pushed back.
And the DNA evidence. That's really shaking up the family tree, isn't it? Proving that things aren't always what they seem based on looks alone.
Oh, genomics is throwing curveballs left, right, and center. Probably the biggest recent shocker involves falcons and parrots.
Falcons and parrots, they seem pretty different.
Right. Historically, falcons were always grouped with hawks and eagles. They look similar, right? Hooked beak, sharp talons, predatory lifestyle. Makes sense.
Sure, birds of prey.
But then came the DNA sequencing. And boom, huge surprise.
Yeah.
Falcons are genetically much more closely related to parrots and songbirds than they are to hawks and eagles.
Get out. That's completely counterintuitive. What does that even mean?
Well, two big things. First, it completely rearranges that branch of the bird family tree. Falcons, parrots, passerines, songbirds share a common ancestor that split off from the hawk eagle line way earlier than we realized. Second, it's a textbook example of convergent evolution. That classic raptor look, the beak, the eyes, the talons, it didn't necessarily evolve just once in a common ancestor of all those birds. It seems falcons evolved that toolkit independently from hawks and eagles because it's just the most efficient design for being a high-speed aerial predator.
So nature arrived at the same solution twice, from different starting points. Wow.
Exactly. The same blueprint achieved through different evolutionary pathways. Now, digging deeper into the genome, there's this other fascinating area, tracking ancient viruses. Scientists have been mapping endogenous retroviruses, or ERVs, in bird DNA.
Okay, slow down. Endogenous retrovirus. What's that?
Think of it like a fossilized virus embedded in the bird's own DNA. Sometimes a retrovirus manages to infect the germline, cells the sperm or eggs. When that happens, the virus's genetic code gets stitched into the host's genome and then passed down generation after generation.
Like a permanent scar from an ancient infection.
Precisely. And they've mapped 4 main lineages of these ERVs that account for like 90% of the ones found in modern birds. By comparing which birds have which ERVs, and where they're inserted in the DNA, we can get clues about how different bird groups are related and when they split apart.
How does that work?
Well, if 2 different bird species share the exact same ERV inserted in the exact same spot in their genome, they must have inherited it from a common ancestor that got infected before those 2 species diverged. It acts like a molecular clock, another way to cross-check the fossil record and figure out the timing of those deep splits, like between ducks and chickens, for example.
That's clever. Using ancient viruses to build the family tree.
I like it.
Okay, let's go back to the KPG's survival story. You mentioned brain power might have played a role. Any new evidence on that?
Yes, a really significant find from Antarctica recently. A fossil bird skull, almost perfectly preserved, dating right to the boundary, 66 million years ago.
Antarctica. Wow.
Yeah. And they were able to analyze the shape of the brain cavity. It showed that this bird, from the ornithomorpha group, the survivors already had brain structures, particularly the forebrain areas associated with complex cognition, that were significantly more developed compared to the skulls of the enantorniths, the ones that died out.
So the survivors literally had bigger, or at least more complex, brains.
It seems so. And think about what that means during an extinction event. Survival isn't just about being tough, it's about being smart, adaptable. A better brain might mean better spatial awareness for navigating a wrecked landscape, better problem solving for finding scarce food, quicker adaptation to terrifying new conditions. Cognitive flexibility might have been a huge, maybe overlooked advantage.
Smarts help them inherit the Earth. That's incredible. And finally, the really cool part. This isn't just history. Evolution's still happening right now.
Oh, constantly. It never stops. Biologists are documenting amazing things in real time. Like, they recently confirmed a natural hybrid between a green jay and a blue jay down in Texas. Two distinct species managing to interbreed and create viable offspring shows how fluid lineages can be.
Wow.
But even more dramatic. On the Galapagos Islands, researchers actually observed a new bird lineage evolving in just 2 generations.
2 generations.
How a rare weather event blew a stranger bird from one island, a different species, onto another island. It mated with a local bird, their offspring were fertile, and within 2 generations, this new hybrid lineage was established and reproductively isolated. A speciation event happening right before their eyes. It just shows the incredible speed and adaptability that's still built into the bird blueprint. Hashtag tag outro.
So let's bring it all together. What does all this mean when you see a pigeon walking down the street or watch a flock of geese flying overhead?
It means you are looking at a living dinosaur. Straight up. That incredible lineage, it didn't just disappear 66 million years ago. It survived. It perfected flight, it shrank down, swapped heavy jaws for versatile beaks, and it weathered the worst catastrophe the planet's seen in ages.
Every single bird carries that history.
Every single one. It's an amazing legacy, like 300 million years of laying hard-shelled eggs, 160 million years of having feathers in some form.
The big takeaways from our deep dive today. Birds are monophyletic, one surviving dinosaur branch. Feathers came way before flight, likely for warmth or show. And that KPG extinction, it wasn't the end for dinosaurs. It was this incredibly harsh filter that basically cleared the way for the most adaptable, maybe the smartest, and definitely the most resourceful feathered lineage, the neonates, to explode into the incredible diversity we see today.
They really did inherit the Earth from their giant, scaly cousins. It's just an amazing story of survival through, well, getting smaller and smarter. It really is. And that leads me to a final thought, something for you to chew on. We know some modern bird lineages, like ostriches, trace their roots way back, maybe even to the late Cretaceous, living alongside the giant dinosaurs. And we've just seen how a new bird lineage can pop up in basically 2 generations on the Galapagos.
Right. Deep history, rapid change.
Exactly. So given that incredible evolutionary depth and that demonstrated speed of adaptation, what ancient survival tricks, what unexplored adaptations from the dinosaur age may be related to metabolism, maybe flight efficiency, maybe egg resilience, what might still be lurking dormant inside the genomes of modern birds, just waiting for the next big environmental challenge, the next great filter to switch back on and reveal that powerful dinosaurian legacy is far from over. Their story is still being written,